Good evening. Welcome to Newsmax Prime. I'm J.D. Hayworth. Of prime interest tonight, outfoxing Fox? While the Fox News Channel hosts the final GOP debate prior to the Iowa caucus, the Republican frontrunner hosts an event of his own. And Donald Trump invites Newsmax TV and other outlets to televise his event, scheduled opposite tonight's debate. Like him or loathe him, Trump has dominated this campaign with an approach that's been described as 1 part P.T. Barnum, 2 parts PR. And in so doing, he may be redefining what it means to be presidential. Miranda Kahn has more.
JD, the late President John F. Kennedy famously observed, things do not happen, things are made to happen. In this online age, Donald Trump continues to make things happen, taking to Twitter once again as he continues his very public feud with Megyn Kelly. He couldn't get Fox to replace Kelly as a debate moderator tonight, so in addition to announcing his own alternative event, Trump tweeted some seductive pictures of Megyn Kelly from her GQ photo shoot and added the caption, criticizes Trump for objectifying women, poses like this in GQ magazine. He also tweeted, and this is the bimbo that's asking presidential questions. Trump's aggressive approach to this campaign, his use of social media, his prominence on television, and the sheer force of his personality not only confounds his Republican opponents, it also befuddles at least one prominent Democrat. Our parent website, Newsmax.com, reports that the Senate Democratic leader told some reporters, quote, I'm kind of pulling for Trump, then took to the Senate floor to walk back that remark.
There's some things that I shouldn't joke about. I tried to be funny an hour ago at my weekly stakeout, and I guess it wasn't very funny. At least I don't think so. The danger Donald Trump candidacy poses to our country is not a joke. Since he launched his bid for the Republican nomination, Donald Trump has proven over and over again that he's a hateful demagogue who would do immeasurable damage to our country if elected.
And Reid's rhetorical attack may only serve to reinforce Republican support for Trump despite the Donald's absence from tonight's GOP debate.
Ooh, that sets the stage, Miranda.
Yes,
we
it
really
does.
appreciate that. And for more on this story, we're very pleased to be joined by political commentator Michael Reagan. Michael's Skyping in tonight from Los Angeles. As always, you can find and follow him on Twitter at Reagan World. Again, Michael, we thank you for your time. And Michael, you wrote an op-ed concerning Mr. Trump for a New Hampshire newspaper. We'll get to that in just a few minutes. But first, did Donald cross the line in tweeting those pictures of Megyn Kelly from GQ?
Yeah, I never thought there'd be a time in my lifetime I would agree with Harry Reid. But I agree absolutely 100% with Harry Reid. Yeah, he did cross the line, absolutely cross the line. But he's been crossing the line since the day he announced that he was running for the presidency of the United States of America. So this is not new. What bothers me, and I think it bothers me more than anything else, JD, I'm not so much bothered by what he says. I've learned to come to expect it. I am bothered by the applause and the people in the room that are applauding these things that he says about Megyn Kelly, what he says about Jeb Bush, what he says about Carson, what he says to a reporter that's got some issues. You know, he has been saying this, and these things bother me, and that's why I find myself, after listening to Harry Reid, this isn't funny anymore. And I think Harry Reid is probably, for the first time in his life, 100% correct.
But putting that aside, Michael, when it comes to the debate, in your opinion, did Mr. Trump, in fact, outfox Fox?
Well, I don't think he outfoxed Fox. He might have ultimately outfoxed himself. You know, I remember calling my father back in 1980 and telling him there was a debate going on in Iowa. And I told him if he's not there, Iowa will, in fact, turn on him. My father treated me like a son. You know, father treats a son. Oh, Michael, I just talked to the campaign staff. Everything's wonderful. They said we're going to do fine. I said, well, you're going to get beat by George H.W. Bush. And we hung up, politely hung up. And, of course, he got beat by George H.W. Bush. The people of Iowa turned on him. Here was a man who had his own radio show there. He was a favorite son in Iowa. And exactly about a week or 2 weeks later, in New Hampshire, he called me on the phone, and I'm the one who approved the firing of his campaign staff the morning of the New Hampshire primary. It's interesting that Roger Stone was the one who I fired on that morning, and Roger Stone is now consulting Donald Trump.
Well, obviously, you were on to something in terms of Iowans wanting to see the candidates and taking a real interest in the upcoming caucus. You mentioned what happened to your dad in 1980. Sounds like you say that Trump may find that to be true and missing tonight's debate.
Very much so. He sucks the air out of the room as he sucked the news out of the room about any of the other candidates. And I think he will be hurt by this tonight. Will he be hurt enough? I don't know if he'll be hurt enough by this, but I hope people of what a President Trump will be. And to say, I'm not happy with Megyn Kelly, I'm going to call her a bimbo. What is he going to do when he walks into the room with a Vladimir Putin or anyone else in the world? Is he going to walk away? Is he going to call them bimbos and walk out and get absolutely nothing done? You know, that does not gain the respect of your adversaries, and that's what you first have to gain if ultimately you're going to put anything together.
Well, you mentioned some of the comments that Trump has made. Trump has been a mastermind, like it or not, behind the mic through this campaign. Here's what he had to say about how Fox has treated him leading up to this debate.
See, the point is that with me, they're dealing with somebody that's a little bit different. They can't toy with me like they toy with everybody else. So let them have their debate, and let's see how they do with the ratings.
Trump doesn't hold back, like it or hate it. He says what he means and means what he says. Michael, what's your reaction to that letter that Fox sent out? Kind of a snarky little remark. Did they kind of have it coming?
Oh, no. I mean, the letter I put out that was covered in New Hampshire is getting a lot of play throughout the country. The other candidates are sending it out to their voting blocks. I imagine they're in Iowa and also in New Hampshire. But let's go back to Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly had every right to ask the question that she asked. And again, what is he going to do if he wins the nomination and he enters into a debate with Hillary Clinton or whomever it might be? Is he going to walk away from those debates because he doesn't like the questions that are going to be asked of him? My God, if he can't make it through Fox and Megyn Kelly on the way up the ladder, what's he going to do when he reaches the peak? Fall off?
Michael, this is a theme you have sounded on previous occasions on this program, and indeed you doubled down on it in that op-ed you wrote for the New Hampshire, the Manchester Union Leader in New Hampshire. In that article you wrote, and I quote, "Mr. Trump, I knew Ronald Reagan, and you're no Ronald Reagan."
It reminds me of my father. My father was not mean-spirited. My father lived by his 11th commandment, by the way. And by the way, Donald Trump never supported Ronald Reagan. He gave money to Jimmy Carter. He gave money to Walter Mondale. My God, he's given money to Rahm Emanuel. You know, he wanted George W. Bush to be impeached. I mean, this is not somebody who comes up in the conservative ranks and to say, well, he's just like Ronald Reagan changed his mind back in the 1960s. No, my father worked years and years and years to, in fact, get to where he was. And remember, he's the one that said, you know, the party left me. I didn't leave the party, which meant the Democrat Party went far left. I worry if we nominate Donald Trump, I can hear the words from my father's gravesite. Michael, I didn't leave the party. The party left me.
Michael, your father is revered for his ability to communicate in language that was simple yet profound. And of course, 30 years ago today, 30 years ago tonight, your dad addressed the American public. We want to listen to some of his remarks and then get your reaction.
The crew of the Space Shuttle Challenger honored us for the manner in which they lived their lives. We will never forget them, nor the last time we saw them this morning, as they prepared for their journey and waved goodbye and slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God.
As the years pass and we gain some perspective, do you marvel at your dad's ability to communicate?
No, I've always marveled at his community to communicate. And every time you listen to that speech, I mean, you do tear up because you go back, if you were alive at that point in time, and you remember that day as the world was remembering that day. We had a president really reached out and touched us and allowed us to have that feeling towards those 7 who died on the Challenger space shuttle. And it was an amazing speech. Peggy Nunes, worked with my dad, on that speech. And gosh, blessings to Peggy also for the great work she did working with my father and capturing who my father was. My father didn't give speeches because he just felt like it was a good idea. When he spoke, you not only heard his speeches, but you felt his speeches.
Right.
And we will have to leave it there. I think that sums it up, Michael.
Does.
We really did feel what he had to say. And Michael, we always appreciate what you have to say. Of course, our friend Michael Reagan. You can follow him on Twitter at Reagan World. A couple of other notes. I'll have more on what President Reagan had to say, remembering the Challenger, later in this program. And later on tonight, extensive coverage here on Newsmax TV. Donald Trump's event at Drake University in Des Moines. Tonight, coverage starts at 9 p.m. Eastern. And following that, we hope you'll join us, as I'll be on the anchor desk for the post-debate special. We'll have highlights from the debate as well as Donald Trump's event for Wounded Warriors. Miranda Khan will be here, so will others. That's later tonight on Newsmax TV, and Newsmax Prime will continue.